Hey everyone, you're listening to the Active Turnkey Podcast, a podcast designed for hands-off, passive real estate rental investors. In the Active Turnkey Podcast, you'll hear Tom Olson and Jared Stoltmeister discuss all things turnkey rentals with other turnkey providers, service providers, and rental investors. Our goal is to help you reach your financial freedom and whatever comes after that. Let's go. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Active Turnkey Podcast. I'm your host, Jared Stoltmeister with the Tom Olson, and we are celebrating today.
Oh boy.
We're celebrating. Today is, I didn't think we'd make it. Yep. 50.
If you're listening to this,
podcasts.
There has been balloons and streamers and everything going
Confetti.
behind us. But if you're watching it, you get to see how good looking me and Jared are. Mm-hmm. And
yeah,
that's what we're going to talk about today, right?
We got
how
dolled
good looking
up today because it was a 50th podcast.
I had to wear some extra makeup.
Yeah, we wanted to look sharp today for the 50th, and so
I think the 3 million listeners that were listening just all clicked off.
You think so?
I think so.
Well, they're going to miss out.
Yeah,
because we're going to talk about a podcast that I think basically every investor is asking. I think that's what
you think every investor is asking this question?
I do. I think if you're not in a market, frankly, even me, like I've even asked this question, but then I go and do it. But
I was at a title company this morning, Jared, and somebody asked me this question this morning.
Oh wow! So there you have it.
And I didn't even know them.
So it's happening.
But they were buying a house.
And there it is. So the question is, is this a good time to buy?
Oh, so Jared, is this a good time to buy?
Yes.
Can we just get it over with?
Yes.
Can we just
can
we just get to the end?
Yes, it is. Now,
okay,
I'm
podcast
sure,
over. We'll see you tomorrow. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah,
Thanks
exactly.
for seeing. Please give us a 5-star review. The answer is yes.
Active Turnkey. The best
Active
way to buy
Turnkey.
rentals. Yeah, there you go. We want to make our podcast a little shorter, and so
yes, we are committed to being shorter.
That's too short.
We're being short.
That's not bringing.
All right.
So yes.
So Jared, why is this a good time to buy?
I think, like anything else, it depends, Tom. I'm stealing your line.
Man,
depends.
Jared,
Yep, I'm going to say it before you do.
Stink.
It depends.
Now I don't know what to say.
Yeah, I know. That was your go-to. It depends on where you're at, right? Where you're buying, what the numbers look like. I'm sure there are some areas of the country where it's probably not a good time to buy.
Okay, so I guess we should back up then. We should clarify the question. Sure. So is this a good time to buy what? Like, okay, what are you actually buying? That may be, and I'll be honest with you, I've heard this said, I think John Maxwell says this, but he says, great leaders ask great questions. And he's always talking about leadership and all this. And I like John Maxwell, don't get me wrong. I think that, whether or not you succeed or not has a lot more to do with fellowship than leadership. And but that's a random topic. We're not going to go down that on this podcast. But anyways, I think it's a good statement though. Like if you ask the right question, sometimes you get the wrong answer because you've asked the wrong question.
Sure.
So is this a good time to buy what?
Okay,
Jared?
now my framework was that this is the Active Turnkey Podcast.
Right, yes. See, that makes much more sense.
So I think the average listener would expect that question to be framed, I would say, maybe real estate.
Is this a good time to buy turnkey?
Oh, there. Okay,
rentals.
So turnkey rentals. There you go.
Yes. Okay,
so that would have been a better way
and then even to narrow that down a little bit, you probably have to look at, I think, for me, I'd look at parts of the country next.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you go back to 2008, and everybody loves to compare this to 2008, and it's not a great comparison. It's pretty horrible, but it taught us some things that still apply today. And one of the things I think it taught us is that, or at least it taught me, because I have been through a couple different corrections, a couple different ups and downs in the real estate market, but 2008 was an unnatural. It kind of went more farther down than you would normally see. But it still taught us things because there were areas of the country in which real estate kept going up. It never went down. And then there was areas that got cut in half. So I do think you have to preface the question with, is this a good time to buy turnkey rentals in maybe Gary, Indiana, or in Indianapolis, Indiana, or in Pensacola, Florida, or maybe in Atlanta or Columbus, Georgia, or there's other areas of Indiana that I highly recommend. And so like I think that helps clarify the question a little bit of like, is this a good time to buy turnkey rentals? And I do, and I'm not going to say it depends because Jared already stole that line from me.
I did.
But I'm going to tell you, I think, depending on the market you're going to go into and the price point you're going to go into, will determine my answer to that. Because I think there are areas that I'm not very big on right now. And even in turnkey rental space, there are people buying and selling houses turnkey in certain markets that I'm not very excited about right now. And I know that this is gonna like kind of lean one way politically. We don't really try to do that too much on this podcast. But I honestly firmly believe that those turnkey rentals in those states that have had massive overreach of freedom grabs, I don't think it's a very good time to buy because there's been a lot of people leaving those states, moving to what some people are calling freedom states now. Those states that like, yes, they took precautions. Yes, they like made sure that they knew that this was real. Yes, there was lockdowns. Yes, there was shutdowns. Yes, there was mask mandates maybe, but like there was a reasonable handling of it. And I think that there's been so many people that have moved away from those states and it's not going to stop. Like it's just not stopping. So is this a good time to buy turnkey rentals? I think if you can stay around the 200,000, even 250 and less, I don't think real estate's going anywhere. I don't think that we are going to have this massive, I'm still waiting for foreclosures to even be talked about. It was like this big talk that happened, a couple months ago. Oh, we're going to have all these foreclosures and it's just going to be so horrible. And
it's been a couple years, really.
They are still not coming out. And a lot of them we're talking to the banks, we're hearing banks, we're listening to, the president or CEO of Chase and other banks that are kind of coming out, giving direction of how they're going to handle things. And then with like $3.5 trillion worth of pork that's going to get spent here in the next who knows how long. And that's a whole nother issue. We probably should have an actual podcast just on this stimulus, whatever they're calling it. Sure. That's just going to pump a bunch of more money into the economy or into, and it's going to force more inflation is really what it's going to boil down to. So is this a great time to buy? I think absolutely it is. If you're in those markets that still are within the affordability of what most people can buy. And most people can still buy, up to $250,000 and actually even beyond that to a certain degree. But for single family, like that's what you're looking at, from my opinion, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, we've had guys, I've been selling with you, Tom, now for over 7 years, and of that, like over 6 of them have been selling turnkey properties. And that's a question I've had people ask me this entire time I've been working with you. Is it too late?
Yeah.
It's been happening for years.
Since 2012, maybe. Like people thought they were too late to the game in 2012.
Right.
And I was like, no, we're probably actually at the bottom right now.
So yeah, I think it's a question you should ask. I don't think anyone really wants to buy at the top of any market, really. I can understand that, I guess. I mean, interest rates are low, so that helps things. But it is something that people have been so concerned about that they keep on missing year after year opportunities.
Right. I mean, it's almost like asking if I should buy Tesla stock in 2020 or 2018. I think it's doubled or tripled since then.
That's good, right?
Yes, that's good, Jared.
Yeah.
So I'm just it to me, like the numbers still have to work.
Sure. Yeah.
To me, like I don't want to buy a rental unless it's going to cash flow. I don't want to buy a rental unless it's going to be something that I can hold, that will give me options, that will give me financial freedom. Like to me, it's all about my goals and my end goals. So I guess it also depends on those things as well. It depends on the market. It depends on the price point. It depends on the, I like to look at population trends and just making sure that we're still moving in a good, solid direction. I talked to an investor this morning from Schaumburg, and like he can see the flight from Illinois moving out of Illinois. Like to me, if you're asking me, is this a great time to buy turnkey rentals in Illinois? I would say absolutely not. Like I wouldn't buy. I wouldn't even consider it. To me, like I don't even do construction in Illinois. I won't do anything in Illinois.
30 minutes away.
I don't want to do. I've almost boycotted Chicago for the last year and a half. So like I don't want to have anything to do with those states. And I know that there's a lot of other people that are like me.
So you kind of jumped the gun on me, and I didn't even have it written down, but I was going to ask you that question. So we're talking about, is it a good time to buy turnkey rental properties, and how it depends on certain variables, and how people have been saying that for a long time. Have I missed it? So Tom, how are you going to go through that? If you're looking at these things, you named off a couple things, but give us some more, things that you're looking for to pay attention. You talked about population, that matters. And actually, I mean, I don't know if you want to get into how that's even affected our market, but population and what else are you thinking? What else are you looking for to help evaluate like what makes an area a good place to continue to buy or to?
Well, I think the game has changed a little bit. It used to be like, am I close to work? But now, like over the last year and a half, we've seen the workplace change so much that it's more like people want to have a house, like they want to be away. So that's even changed a little bit. And I'll be, it's weird because people, it used to be the three most important things about real estate was location, location, location. It's not even true anymore. And I know, like, I'm going to get shot and crucified by somebody out there that thinks that that's still like the number one and number two and number three rule of real estate. But we've seen it with our own houses and our own, even on the retail end of this. It's not all about location, location, location. It's about the house. It's about the layout. It's about, like, can my family comfortably live here? Do I have good Wi-Fi? Like, those things matter. Can I get good Wi-Fi here? Like, that's a big deal nowadays. It didn't used to be that big of a deal, but now it's a big deal. Am I close to the things that I need, the necessities, grocery stores, for instance, and those kind of things that people are actually. But a lot of it's more about, like, do I feel good in this house? It's really more about the house itself. It's changed. It really has. I can find a great, looking house in a D area, and it may sell quicker and for almost as much money as, like, a house of the same square footage in a B area. It's just strange. Like I can't put a finger or a pulse on it. I can't tell you exactly why that's the case. But people have always talked about schools. They've always talked about all these things, and they don't matter as much anymore. I'm not saying they don't matter. Sure. I'm not trying to go down that trail at all, but they don't matter as much as they used to.
Well, it's interesting because in a market like we're at, that is still going up. We would say in Gary, it's still going up. That's the case. When a property is on the market and it has every box checked. It's got a good layout. Everything's new and clean and fresh. The price is right. What's the market time?
Oh, it sells at a weekend.
Yeah, hours, right? I mean, you're getting multiple offers in hours. And so you're right, that the house does matter, and that is selling, even in an area what Gary's become.
And your A areas have started to appreciate less already. Like you've already seen those A areas like not continue to to push up. I think we had an anomaly a little bit in the spring of 2021 where like the appreciation was just insanely ridiculous in a very short period of time. It was almost like everybody thought we were out of COVID because everything was opening up, and then there was like euphoria. It was like, I've never seen that in the last 20 years of doing real estate myself. That was the perfect time to sell a property. That is no longer, just so everybody knows. And I'm not saying it's like way down, but it's just back to kind of what the normal, steady rate was. But from that initial surge in the spring, we actually kind of saw a little bit of a dip, and then it's kind of like climbing back up. It's kind of like if you look at a stock chart, like you never see it always continue to go up, even within days and months and weeks. Like it goes up and down. Real estate has a little bit more of that, but because it's such a personal and a big purchase, it doesn't move as quickly. It's not like crypto where like it can literally drop 50% in a couple days. That's not reality, and it can't go up that fast either. It can go up, but it doesn't normally go up that quickly as a percentage of the whole.
Yeah, so I mean, if you go on the market today, the houses that are priced right, and it doesn't have to be technically if it's an investment property. If it's priced right, it'll still sell quickly. But the stuff that's rehabbed, like you said, hours and one weekend. However, you also see, conversely, the stuff that's on the market for weeks. So usually in those situations, they're probably well overpriced.
It's overpriced, so there's something wrong with the house, or it's like not quite updated, and
right.
And that wasn't happening in the spring. Everything
Right.
was selling. It didn't
Right.
matter what it was. It could have been garbage, and it was selling very quickly.
And so I guess that is kind of the natural effect where if the Joe neighbor down the street sees a flipped house sold and now they think they're going to get the same price because they have similar square footage.
Now they do add value. It does add value to those houses.
It does, but they're obviously a house that's fully rehabbed and yours who hasn't been updated in 20 years. There's going to be a difference there between how quickly your houses are going to be on the market. It's just how it goes. And so anything else?
Some of the things that I would be looking at for, is this a good time? Is like, does it still check my boxes? Am I still going to get cash flow out of this? And knowing if I'm buying a rental property, I'm not buying this necessarily for the appreciation. Now, do I want it? Yeah, but that's not why I buy a turnkey rental. I buy a turnkey rental because I want passive income. And if you sell the property, guess what? You don't have passive income anymore. So I'm really focused on that and focus on areas in which, I can still either hit or come close to hitting that 1% return. And there's not a ton of areas that still hit that, but there are still some areas. Our area is one of those areas that we still, most of the time, we don't always hit it, but most of the time we hit it. And when we don't hit it, it's normally with the higher priced properties because, by the time you add in taxes and insurance, it still gives you the same kind of cash flow. And you think even if the percentage of appreciation is slower over time than maybe some of the lower class areas, which I think may be the case, you're still getting a good bump. Like for instance, a $250,000 house appreciating at 3% is going to get you the same dollar amount of appreciation of 6% appreciation on a $125,000 house. So it's still a way to make a good amount of money from that same asset. So I don't see how. I just don't see it. I don't see how properties cannot appreciate with the amount of money that we are printing. I know that comes with other economic, questions, and I'm not saying I'm not saying any of it's a good thing. I actually think it's a bad thing in the long run when you just start spending money, because I honestly I don't believe that we need to spend like even maybe a quarter of what they're proposing right now.
Sure.
that we should be spending. I think it's mostly pork and mostly meant to make connected politicians rich, which is kind of funny because at the same time we're like criticizing the rich and like telling them they need to pay their fair share, right? But at the same time, like all it does is make the politically correct connected more rich. So I don't know. I just maybe that doesn't like bother anybody else out there, but for me, my head just spins because I don't think that they. You're
doing the math.
Well, and maybe I'm the only person, Jared, in the whole world that sees it. It's possible. It's possible that I'm the only person.
You're a prophet.
That sees that, but
sure.
it bothers me.
Sure.
Maybe it shouldn't bother me so much.
Now, what do you tell the guy who has seen the market appreciate, and now he's hesitant to now pull the trigger because now he's paying $10,000 more for the house, or he's paying $15,000 more for the house that he, a year ago, 2 years ago, he was paying, obviously $15,000 less. Like, what do you say to that guy as he's trying to evaluate, again, is this still a good time to buy?
I think there's two or three things. First of all, like $10,000 or even $20,000 in the whole realm, in the whole like big picture, doesn't even matter. That's the first thing. The second thing is that if, let's just say if you're paying $20,000 more for a property now than you had to pay, 3 years ago, I would almost guarantee that rent is also $200 more. So you're also getting more rent, and it's literally the same as if, you were to buy before. I mean, again, I still think there's always things to pay attention to, and there's always things to watch. And right now, we are just simply not building enough properties. Like, you can't get materials. There's material shortages. There's I mean, I think this morning somebody sent me a picture of the bay in LA. And there's like 600 ships or something crazy waiting to get ported, and because they can't get ported because there's not enough people that will work. It's like the most crazy thing you can ever imagine. So you have shortages, you have new construction builders that even if they had orders couldn't build because they can't get the materials fast enough. You've had this whole year of not enough building happening. And like, what is that going to do? Like, to me, there's one rule that real estate will always live by, and that is supply and demand. And let's go back to 2008, because like I said, I don't think this is 2008, but there's lessons that we can learn from 2008. One of the number one reason why real estate went down so much wasn't because of the banking. Like, everybody loves to blame the banks and loves to say, well, they were giving mortgages to people that could breathe. That really wasn't true. Like, it really wasn't. Yes, people love to actually have somebody to blame.
Sure.
The biggest reason, though, is because we overbuilt. I was in new construction at the time. I know, like, when you were seeing like 500 new builds going up every month in our one county, like, at some point you're going to get overbuilt. So when you have overbuilt and then you have any kind of economic, downturn, like, it's going to affect that housing industry. And today we almost have the exact opposite effect right now. In fact, I think it's possible, and I know this is going to sound crazy, but I think it's possible that we could go on a run. We could go, like, our whole real estate could double again, because like, people are going to find the fact that there's nothing available. And we've been building condos, and we've been building in big cities, and people have wanted to move away from big cities, and people have kind of moved out. I think at some point that's going to create an opportunity for big cities. That's not today. But I still think I think single family is by far the best place to put your money if you can stomach the long term. And that's not what today's podcast is all about. But if you go and listen to some of our other podcasts, you can learn more about, like, what are those things I have to be able to stomach? What are those ups and downs of this game that I have to understand? And I don't think you should just buy one. I never think that. I think you should buy 4 as fast as you can, get to 10 as fast as you can, and get to 20 as fast as you can, because the amount of doors that you have, gives you more stability. It gives you a large enough statistical snapshot to be able to know, what does it really feel like over a long period of time. If you have 10 properties over 20 years, you're going to find out that some years in some of those properties you're going to lose money, and some years in some of those properties you're going to have no maintenance and it's going to be perfect. And but if you have either one of those as your crystal ball, and you assume that that's going to happen, you're going to be completely wrong 100% of the time. It's going to be a little bit of both. So if you're willing to stomach that, I think that turnkey rentals are one of the best places that you can put your money, as long as you have good people backing those, and people that are going to take care of repairs, take care of management requests, get properties rented and turned over quickly. That's the name of the game.
Yeah, in practicality, one way to look at it is, most investors who are buying turnkey, especially they buy because of liquid, what they have liquid, and so they're building up that money so they can get that next deal. $10,000 is $2,000, right? That's it. That's all out of pocket. You're spending more for that deal to acquire it. So if it's gone up $20,000, is it worth $4,000 for you in addition to what you were paying a year or two ago to acquire another deal? It's really not that much more money. Just to get a deal.
The other thing to consider is interest rates. So interest rates are lower today than they were 2 or 3 years ago. So just that, like, over the 30 years or over however long you're going to actually hold your mortgage, is probably going to save you money with today's interest rates, even paying $20,000 more than if you bought the same house 3 years ago, paying $20,000 less with the interest rates that you were stuck with. And they weren't even bad. I'm not even saying that they were bad. They were great. But so that's get back to kind of like, when do I know, what do I focus on? I think focusing on new construction and knowing what's being built, focusing on, and that supply and demand, what's happening there. Looking at interest rates is a key. Like, to me, it's an absolute key. And even now, like, you have to start even looking at insurance and property taxes. Those things really come into play. and they mess up, or they can really help, how much money you can make in the long run when it comes to, and taxes is a whole nother, topic that we can talk about on a different time. We probably really do need to focus more on taxes on this podcast. But those are things that, big picture, you need to focus on.
Yeah, that's where even Tom, you're talking about interest rates. That's where, as of today, sometimes you may have a deal that's cash flowing better than it was a year or two ago now on a per deal basis, because the interest rates are so low. It's really neat to see how it's either been steady or sometimes even more cash flow on an individual deal, even though you're paying more. So we hope this podcast brought value. Again, we talked about, is this a good time to buy? And we were more specific by turnkey rentals. And so don't forget, we do provide and have opportunities for you to build portfolios. And so if you'd like to get started and you're wanting to get into investing, you can reach out to us at byolsongroup.com, or you can reach me at Jared at byolsongroup.com, and or you're looking for a new market, we can help you with that. And eventually we're going to open up the Florida market. It will be 2022 possibly, we'll see. But we'll see about that. So thank you for joining us today on the 50th podcast.
Yes, the 50th. Boom. It's like
celebration.
Huge celebration.
Yeah.
We're at the 50th podcast of the Active Turnkey podcast, and there's nothing more. If you could do something for us, I would love for you to go and give us a 5-star review on Apple, Google, wherever you found this podcast, or even on YouTube. Subscribe to our channels and tell your friends about us.
Yeah.
And we do have an event that we do about every year. We just had that event when you're getting this podcast. But if you're interested in coming out and seeing us, please let us know. We'd love to be able to connect you with our network. And, even possibly if you're not interested in our market, I'd love to be able to connect you with somebody else that would be able to suit your needs.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Active Turnkey,
the best way to buy rentals.
See ya.
Olson Group Network makes no warranty, guarantee, or representation as to the accuracy or sufficiency of the information featured in this podcast. The information, opinions, and recommendations presented in this podcast are for general information only, and any reliance on the information provided in this podcast is done at your own risk. This podcast should not be considered professional advice. Unless specifically stated otherwise, Olson Group Network does not endorse, approve, recommend, or certify any information, product, process, service, or organization presented or mentioned in this podcast, and information from this podcast should not be referenced in any way to imply such approval or endorsement. Any third-party materials or content of any third-party site referenced in this podcast do not necessarily reflect the opinions, standards, or policies of Olson Group Network. Olson Group Network assumes no responsibility or liability for the accuracy or completeness of the content contained in third-party materials or on third-party sites referenced in this podcast, or the compliance with the applicable laws of such materials and/or links referenced herein.